Hi, my name is Melanie Ludy, and I talk about the things I do to keep me successful as a teacher and in life. So this week's video is all about conferences. We're coming up on the end of either second trimester, third quarter, and at this point, the honeymoon period is over. Kids have really started to fall off if they were gonna. So you now really have negative things to say to parents. So I'm going to talk about how I do makeup work, how I communicate with parents, how I prepare for conferences, all of it right here. Let's get into it. All right, guys. So to start this video on conferences, we got to talk about makeup work. A large part of my students' grades ends up being makeup work because they don't do it when they're in class, or they don't finish it in class and then they forget about it. That ends up being a lot of what parents ask about for me, for my kids and their grades. Do they have any makeup work? Do they have any incomplete assignments? The answer is almost always yes. So we got to have a system for how we deal with makeup work. So when I was in building, I had a bunch of file folders stacked up with our assignments from the week, and I would just keep those stocked. So if kids were absent a day, they could just take the worksheet from whatever day they missed, good to go. With virtual, it's almost even easier because when they go to their Google Classroom, it shows them all of their classwork. And say I open my student account. Okay, so I'm in my student account. So this shows me my upcoming assignments. It shows me my classwork here. I can go to view my work. I love having kids go to the view their work tab because they can see all of their stuff. Like I can see that I got a 100 on this ice cream pictures. I got a 3 on this reflection. So I would know as a student what to go back and make up. Or like I see missing, I should go back and make that up if I was a student. Having all of this digitally, I also don't have to give students work packets because it's all there for them to access. They have my comments with feedback on it so they know what to fix. It's not just I'm giving you a quiz that was 6 out of 25, hey, make corrections. No, there's personalized feedback here. They can access it whenever. I love being virtual for that. So then as the teacher, how are you gonna grade makeup work? That's kind of the other important part of this makeup work system. How are students gonna get it? How are you gonna get it back? When and how are you gonna grade it? So for me, what I do is I grade makeup work every Friday. And most Fridays, it's not a ton here or there, but because I do it every week, it's never a monumental task. It's probably 10, 15 assignments over 15 kids per class per week. So at the end of the day, it's still a good amount of work, but it never builds up to astronomical levels so that it's just overwhelming and you just bulk give kids, hundreds or 80s just because you have no idea what it is. And it takes far too long to grade that. I know you know what I'm talking about. So let me go back to my teacher one. When I go to the grades tab here, what I end up doing every Friday or so is I will scroll through and just look for things that are turned in or resubmitted. So I always go all the way to the right, start with my oldest stuff. These missings I would usually put in hundreds for, but then this guy here, I see it's in green, so someone turned this in. I should go to that form, check on the score, re-add it here. I also would look for things like this, where it says resubmitted. This particular one is already full credit, so I don't need to look at it again. But for my kids who do resubmit, I would recheck the form, I would recheck the activity, possibly give them more feedback. But just quick scrolls through looking for either these greens or these reads submitted. Sometimes you'll see things that say not turned in. That's just when you grade it when they haven't turned it in, which after a certain point I just put in zeros. So at least the student knows what their score is going to be if they don't do that. kind of give them that worst case scenario before the end of the quarter so they know that they have work to do. Because what happens is Google Classroom will only calculate the percentage for the things that are graded. So if a student did 2 assignments and they got 90% on both of those, cool, Google thinks their average is a 90%. But then if you go in and put zeros in for the other 8 assignments that they did no work on, once all of that gets tallied up, they have about an 18%. It's not going to work out well if you suddenly have kids from A's to 18%. So I like to add in zeros for missing work as we go, usually within a week of the due date, just so kids have an idea of like where their grade is actually at. So I don't have any of those shocking changes late in the quarter. So then the next major part of this conversation is, how are you communicating with parents? So one of my favorite ways is to use the progress reports that are in Google Classroom. So when you go to a student, this little email icon comes up and it says email student or guardians. You can invite guardians to link them to certain students. So like I can invite a student's mom or their grandmother or whoever it is that looks out for them in their grades. And I add them by email. So when I go people, my Gmail account knows that I'm over 18 years of age, so it's not going to ask me to invite guardians. But there will be a little green link here and it'll say invite guardians for your students. Then you just type in the parent or guardian email address and it'll send them that invite. Very simple on their part. It's just kind of like an activating their account kind of thing. Like they click a link, they hit yes, and they're good to go. So you can go to individual students, you hit this email icon. For your students, this will come up with a drop-down bar and it'll be like student, guardian, or student and guardian. I almost always send it to student and guardian if they have a guardian linked. Then you hit include work summary. So that's going to give them that view your work tab that you see here. So all of this will end up in the email that you send in that progress report. But this percentage at the top won't be included when you send that progress report. So you have to add that into the body of that email you send. So I'm here, include student work summary, and then I keep a post-it actually of my message that I send out. So there we go. Hello, she currently has I technically have a 97. Anything with a score less than 10 except participation can be redone. If she has specific questions, please have her leave me a private comment or talk to me in Friday's class. Thank you, Miss Ludy. Very simple. I tell them the grade. This is the biggest part. This is the data number that parents and students cannot walk away from. Either it's a passing grade or it's not a passing grade. It's hard to argue with a number. I tell them specifically what can be redone if they would like to do any of that. Score less than 10, not participation. I also tell them ways to contact me. Leave me a private comment. I have hammered that into my students' minds about how to leave a private comment. They know how to do that. My 8th graders also have me on Friday for like a special kind of office hours with just certain classes. So they can talk to me during those times to get help with makeup work. Always say please and thank you. So like, please, thank you, good to go. And then I would just hit send. So then let me open up that email so you know what it looks like. So this is what the progress report looks like that I sent. So it says from the teacher, hello, there is my whole message I gave. It says the student's name, when this progress report was created. So like if the student knows they turned in work at 4:10, that's why it's not on this progress report. I like that it's time-stamped for fact reasons. And then it tells all of the assignments, their grade on all of those. Parents can see if they turned it in, if it's missing, what the grade is, all of that jazz. I love these progress reports. It's also why I include the percentage at the top. The important thing about it though is it's a no reply service. So when parents get this, they have to know that they can't reply to the progress report. They have to reply to your special email address. So maybe in this comment here, you might include your school email so parents remember what that is. So just like with grading makeup work, you should put parent communication on a schedule. So what I do is I post to Class Dojo probably about once a week. So Class Dojo has a couple different features that I like. So one, I can create a class on there with student profiles. If your school uses Class Dojo, a lot of the younger school teachers will have already added kids and already connected parents. So then you already have kids and parents on there ready to go. One of the features of Class Dojo is that it has like a news feed kind of function. They call it the class story, but it's where I can put like text posts and I can attach documents if I want, put links if parents need it. I can post like, hey, the quarter ends on March 19th. Please check in with your scholar about their makeup work. And then it also has a direct message function. So I could directly message any student or parent in there. But with 140 students, even direct messaging them when they're all on one app is hard. So I like the class story post because then I can communicate simple information very quickly with large amounts of people in one post. It makes my job so much easier. And because I use that so regularly, parents will then direct message me with any kind of comments. So I don't have to individually message 140 parents. I have that class story post and then parents with extra questions can message me from there. So I am still communicating with families, but it doesn't take up nearly as much as my time as it used to. I also send out progress reports from Google Classroom about every 2 weeks. If parents have that information of their grade, it gives them a starting off point of like, okay, why are we at a 17? What can we do to improve from this 76 or whatever it is? So the other thing I want to mention about parent communication is having conference notes. So this is a template I created. It's actually available in a parent communication bundle that I have on my Teachers Pay Teacher store. So it's just you put the student name, their parent name, because they don't always match up. So it's not always, James Smith and Mrs. Smith. If there's a different name there, I want to make sure I have that down. And then I put the date and time there so I know when it is. I always include glows, things that the students are doing well. There's always grows for things like things that they could do better, and then any kind of additional comments I want to make, things I need to remember. So like if they got a 15 on their Google Classroom, but I had to bump them up to a 50%, maybe I would write that down. Or maybe I would write, they had an excellent Black History project. I would love to showcase it. Do I have your permission? Things like that. But having just a little something on each kid that I'm going to conference with or each family that I'm going to conference with, it helps me feel better about going into that meeting and it makes it clear about what I want to say. The other thing included in that bundle is this student conference log. So the date, their grade, the items they're currently missing, the date that I gave them this work packet. This was really for when I was in building, and then their initials saying they got that work packet. This was again just kind of me covering all bases. So if parents ask me, why did my child end up with a 50? Well, I gave them 3 work packets. They never turned them in. And I have the date, the grade, so that parents can help hold students accountable as well. This also included, contact information for students, how I communicated with certain families, and any kind of disciplinary write-ups that might have happened. Okay, so we talked about when we should communicate with families, kind of some tools on how to do that. We also talked about having a system for makeup work to kind of make sure all things are covered on your end. Now let's talk about the actual how to talk to families, because I feel like this is kind of the easiest part to know, but almost the hardest part to apply. So when you're talking to families, make sure that you are honest. If the student has a 17%, they need to know that the student has a 17%. You can't sugarcoat that and then get to conferences, because then parents would be like, why didn't you talk to me about them having 17%? And you have no ground to stand on. You got to be honest with them. You have to make sure you include all of the details that are relevant. That being said, do look for the positives. You saw in my conference notes that I always have glows and grows. It's very important that students and families see the glows that are going on. They know that their student is a good kid at heart. They want to know that you know that as well. So you got to include those glows in there, things that they are doing well. Even if it's just, this student is asking questions. This student is coming to class more frequently. When they missed, 90% of the days, but hey, they're coming to a few more days. That's fine. Anything you can say about growing or their glows, and then you focus on areas of growth. It's not bad things they are doing, it's areas that they can improve in. That positive framing of everything is going to be enormously helpful to you. No parent wants to hear that their child is bad. No parent wants to hear that their child is dumb. You cannot say those things. By putting that positive frame on it of areas of growth, the parent knows that you see the student as a human being and as a valuable person. It also puts you on the team of the student and the parent. That was probably one of the biggest things I had to learn with parent communication. Think of it as a team. Parent, student, you. There's 3 sides of this triangle here. So you gotta work with families and be on the team. There can be a strong temptation to sandwich. Don't. So sandwiching is when you go positive, negative, positive. The thing is, when you do that, people tend to miss that negative in the middle, and then that's not gonna get addressed. So there's a difference between sandwiching and areas of growth. Areas of growth are definitely things that need to be worked on, but where you sandwich, then you're kind of just negating that bad part and pretending like it doesn't exist. You can't do that. Students won't grow, the problem won't get fixed, and parents are just going to be upset at the end because the problem didn't get fixed and their student is still failing or not doing as well as they would like. So occasionally you will get parents who, attack you, quote unquote. So like, why wasn't I notified about this? You need to be better communicating with me. This is not acceptable. Why does my student have a 33? How did they get away with this for so long? The list goes on. First, you do the best that you can, and that has to be enough. So when you get those angry messages from parents who are just outraged at where you currently are with something, maybe it's an action you took, maybe it's something you didn't do, here's your game plan. You're gonna start out sugary sweet. You're gonna be honest though. So, hi, Mrs. Smith. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I also wanted to talk to you about the issue of James' attendance. You thanked them for reaching out to you. You want them to keep communicating with you, even though they're yelling at you right now. You want them to keep communicating with you because then they're going to bring up their issues. They're going to be more involved. You got to encourage that part of the behavior. Then you're going to acknowledge the issues. Don't skirt around and, say, oh, they're not that absent that often. If the parent is bringing it up, it's an issue whether you think it is or not. So you got to acknowledge the issue of James's attendance in this scenario. I'm worried about James and his attendance. He is missing a lot of important information, and this is going to affect his grade soon. Lay out the logistics of it. Mom probably knows this already, but it helps to have it out. Acknowledge the issues, offer a solution. By offering a solution, you are offering something that is within your means to give. So like if a parent is unhappy with a child's grade, Okay, I hold office hours after school on Thursday. Would you like to make it mandatory for your child to come until we bring their grade up? There you go. Simple thing. You're already doing office hours. You're just asking the parent if this would like to be mandatory for them, which is not going to take much effort on your part. Especially if they know the date and time, they can hold their student accountable. Hey, get on that computer at 3 o'clock on Thursday or whenever it is. Also, if I email the parent then, hey, so-and-so missed their time, then it's not in my court anymore. Then it's on them and they can deal with it from there. If you're offering solutions, it's something that's within your wheelhouse. So you're not saying that you're going to call home every time someone is absent, because that is just so much extra work. If you make the solution, you're giving something that you can afford to give, not bending to the whims of whatever parents ask for, which are not always possible. Biggest things to remember with parent communication. A lot of the time, a parent's anger or frustration is not about you. Yeah, you maybe did not communicate with the family as much as they would like, or as much as even you would like. But by going in there with a solution-minded attitude, you're going to be able to make progress with that family. And you're still going to be able to be on the team, which is, at the end of the day, the most important part. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video about how I make conferences a success. They used to be such a stressor for me. So I really hope that these tips help give you some peace of mind for all of this. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button down below. It really helps me out. Hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all of my latest videos, and I'll see you in the next one.